Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Absolute Beginners here from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Qualifying is just completing right now, and three cars of drivers will take on this technically difficult road course here at the home of NASCAR, Charlotte Motor Speedway. Will Vincent here on RaceSpotTV. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at RaceSpotTV, also Facebook.com/RaceSpotTV as well. And this race is brought to you by the Autobahn Motor Car Group in Fort Worth. So thank you very much to them. Very quickly, going to run through your championship standings coming into this event. And starting off with the GTR class, it is Kevin Binkley leading the way with 103 points. John Ulmer in second. Marcus Kramer in third. Jimmy Eifling and then Gregory Nutley round out your top five. Then we shall head over to the GTO class. And over there, it is Johan van der Velde leading the way, dominating in GTO class, 154 points. Andy Corkill in second, Robert Plant in third, Bert Behrens and David Henry round out your top five. And then finally, in the GTS class, it is Brian Herring leading the way for the Infinite Racing Group team. Martin Jensen in second, Liam Quinn, Adam Bradshaw and Andy Morgan round out your top five. Qualifying is complete, and that means that we can head ourselves down to the starting grid. And in the GTR class, it is John Ulmer in the 902 car, starting this race on pole position. Nicholas Licari will line up alongside him in row number one. Jeremy Smith and Jimmy Eifling in row number two. And then Andrew Daniels and Kevin Binkley in row number three. T-Mac and Kyle Pitson in row number four. Ryan Crofton and Greg Hogg in row 5, then Billy Smith and Stan Culpepper in row number 6, and then your 13th car at the rear of the GTR class is Ben Helsden. Over to GTO class, it is David Henry starting this race on pole position. Andy Yang in P2. Herman van Velde will be starting this race from third position. Of course, he was so dominant just 1 week ago. Dario Busi in fourth. Andy Cockrell at Gordon Wilson. Robert Plant round out your GTO field. And then in GTS class, it is Brian Herring, Arthur Chan on the front row of that class. Then Liam Quinn, Brett Torsen, Adam Bradshaw, Dries Nays, Manuel Muyan, Martin Jensen, Vincent Bream, L. Peterson, Dennis the Menace, Andy Gordon, Art Senna, and Dylan Francis rounding out your GTS field. So, cars are lining up on the racetrack. It'll be a manual pace lap here today, then we'll go racing for approximately 45 minutes around the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And one more time, ladies and gentlemen, just like to remind you, this race is brought to you today by the Autobahn Motor Car Group in Fort Worth, Texas. So then, cars are lined up on the grid. You can see once again we've got three different classes of cars. We've got the GTR class, then the GTO class and the GTS class. We'll talk about these in detail over the course of this event. But the cars now just making their way on a single warm-up lap, and then we're going to let them rip for approximately 45 minutes worth of racing. You see these cars just working themselves down towards turn number one. This is where they come off of the oval, work themselves on the exit of pit road. Pit exit here can be incredibly difficult. Really got to wheel that car on pit exit, then they bring themselves down towards turn number two, and this infield section can be difficult. A couple of gradient changes as we're having a look at Ryan Crofton. Actually, he is just bringing those cars right now down towards turn number 3 on the racetrack in that number 10 mild 7 car. As you see, just an uphill turn number 4. This is really difficult because if you get a little bit wide on this corner, it's so easy to go in the grass, and then the track falls away down into turn number 5. A little bit of camber here in turn 5 and turn 6. And what this does actually is it does allow these cars to be set up well, and you get some good differentiation between having to run the road part of the racetrack and on the oval as well. Then you are flat out on the oval. This is NASCAR turn 2. And then these cars will be flat out all the way from here down towards the back straightaway. They'll come past this incredibly large TV screen on the right hand side of the racetrack, just to the right of the safer barrier, and then they work themselves down into NASCAR turn 3 and 4. And what you will see here today is a lot of passing on this very long oval. In fact, this is the longest flat out section they will have all season long, because of course at Daytona you get that break with the bus stop chicane in the middle. You won't get any of that here today. Brian Crofton then bringing the field out of NASCAR turn 4. That pace car is off. This race will start right now. Good early jump there in the GTR class as the cars come down into turn number 1 for the first time. A little bit of a gap, then we head ourselves back into GTO. Looks as though everyone is through that one without any incident at all, as these guys all now getting themselves down towards turn number 2 on the racetrack. Just having a look through timing and scoring, does look as though that everyone is through without any real incident. There did see a little bit of smoke towards the rear of the field, but I think everyone is for the most part through that one without any incident. So then these cars are really packed together as they work themselves now onto the banking for the first time in the GTR class, and your race leader is Ryan Crofton. He's got himself a 1.47 gap to Kevin Binkley running in second, but look at the draft that Binkley is going to get. Let's say 1.4 seconds. Now let's see whether Binkley can close that up or whether Crofton has been able to beat the draft in the early going here. Having a look through that GTR class, and Binkley to Smith is about a 1.1 second gap. Then Ulmer is also Billy Smith T-Mac involved in a bit of a moment here as they come down into turn number 1 once again. A little bit of passing going on, and that was Billy Smith being able to make a pass there over Gretschhog as they complete their first lap of the race. A bit of side-by-side racing also in the GTO class, as Robert Grant being able to get himself past Andy Yang, moving himself up the position on the racetrack. I think that one the other way around. But all these guys now have completed their first lap, and 2 wide racing down in the GTS class as well. 2 wide, 2 deep. That was Martin Jensen, Arthur Chan battling for position. They will remain 2 wide out of turn number 1. Down into turn 2 they come. A little bit of contact just here in that, but they remain 2 wide, and this is the battle overall for your race leader. Car getting very loose there. That is Ben Heldston having to work himself through this traffic after starting from pit road. 2 wide, they were for about 4 corners, but this GTS class is incredibly close right now, and we'll pay our attention to that as they work themselves back onto the oval once again, because this is where you are going to see a lot of drafting and passing. So then they come back out onto the oval once again, and you can see these gaps are pretty close. We have got, by the looks of it, a car falling down the field. Just having a look on time and scoring, see if there's anything we can find out about that one. 2 people didn't start this race, by the way. Nicolas Leclerc and Dario Burzi did not start this event here today, but Arthur Chan right on the rear right now of Martin Jensen as they work themselves through NASCAR turn 3 and turn 4. Now they work themselves onto this front straightaway. You have got to be careful under braking here, as you've now got Arthur Chan looking to the outside, back to the inside. He's not going to get that job done as they come down in towards turn number 1 once again. John Olmo right now is all over the rear of Kevin Binkley in the battle for P2. He's going to look down to the inside. This is in your GTR class, and that gap is just a couple of tenths of a second on the racetrack right now. Olmo all over the rear, not able to get that job done, however, over Kevin Binkley, and however Ryan Crofton does continue to lead the way here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is the battle, as I say, for P2 and P3 on the racetrack, your overall GTR race lead, and of course also your overall leader in this event as well. That battle continues on the racetrack in the GTR class, say for P2 and P3. Having a look very quickly though at the GTO class, it is Hohen Veld who is once again, ladies and gentlemen, just dominating right now in that class. A 1.6 second gap to Gordon Wilson, who runs in that second place right now in GTO. Having a little bit further back through that field, you have got yourself a nice little battle going on as a car just getting all four wheels onto the grass out of what I believe is turn number 4 on the racetrack as they work themselves now up the hill. This is between David Henry and Robert Grant, and then you've also got Andy Yang in that mix as well in the GTO class. So 3 cars very closely separated on the racetrack, as Henry actually, just having a look at him as he comes back onto the oval, lost a little bit of time there in that gap. He lost about half a second, but he might be able to gain some of that back as he's now onto the oval once again, coming down on this very fast flat out section. Doesn't look as though he's going to be able to attack the guy ahead of him, but at the same time, just ahead, Andy Corkill is battling right now with Stan Kopsler, but that is an inter-class battle that is going on there, so no real effect on the overall race. Robert Grant and Andy Yang, they remain pretty much line astern, just about 0.6 of a second separating those 2 drivers on the racetrack as they bring it out of the oval and back down into this infield road section once again. Having a look back into your GTO class, and as it stands right now, it is an interesting battle developing, but the field's gotten a little bit more spread out. You have to look more to the rear of the field as they go 3 wide on the oval with some of the faster traffic going past some of the slower guys in the GTS class. And Manuel Muon just looking as though he's got some damage to that number 7 car actually, as he's running it on the apron, so it looks like he might be coming down on towards pit road. Take that back, that doesn't look as though it's going to be Muon car just behind him, actually letting all this traffic out of the way. But Muon now up into 9th place on the racetrack as the car is just going to storm around the outside of him as they come back down into turn number 1 once again. So a couple of guys are running a little bit slowly right now. We are going to try and get confirmation of this. It was Dennis Noyce, the Benelux driver, who was the one who we saw on the apron a little bit earlier. It does look as though that he's going to come back onto the racetrack, and pit road here is incredibly difficult because it actually does feed right onto the racetrack, as Andy Corkill, we're getting word, has spun his car. There you see him on your screen in the GTO class, the number 67 car. Let's see if we can get a replay of that and figure out what happened to him. But he's having to take a while to allow all of these cars to go past him. And it's also a very narrow place to try and get that car to do a 3-point turn. Let's see what happened though to Andy Corkill. Coming down in towards turn number 1 in the GTO class. Comes down, oh, he makes contact along the way there with a 427 car. Then slams it onto the outside retaining wall. A lot of time lost there for Andy Corkill. I'd say he was helped along the way with a little bit of contact down into turn number 1 with the 427 car. So that kind of explains what the issue was. But Corkill taking the worst of that, a head-on impact into the outside concrete barrier. And that is why he really is slow on the racetrack. And he is falling down to the rear of the GTO class. He might have to make a pit stop as well, because he has got some rather substantial front end damage, which will really hurt his top speed through this flat out section of the racetrack. We'll keep an eye out on him, see whether he will make that dart towards pit road this time by. As you can see, traffic behind him swarming on the outside line. That is your overall race leader of Ryan Crofton in that number 10 Mile 7 machine, just breezing past Corkill. Corkill does stay out on the racetrack, however. To give you a confirmation of how much time he lost, that last lap he lost in total of 29 seconds. His best time was a 1 minute 13.2. Last lap was a 1 minute 42.413. So then 10 minutes of this race is pretty much going to be scored complete this time by. So have a look through your overall top 5. It is Ryan Crofton leading the way right now in the GTR class. Kevin Binkley in 2nd, John Ulmer in 3rd, Billy Smith in 4th, and then T-Mac rounds out your top 5 in the GTO class. It is Herd van Velde leading the way as it stands right now from David Henry, I believe, as Gordon Wilson does look as though he is out of this race. Get confirmation out on that in just one moment. Robert Grant, Andy Yang also involved in the mix there. And then in GTS class, it is Brian Heron leading the way from Martin Jensen, Dylan Francis, Liam Quinn, Andy Morgan. They are your top 5 as it stands. Just having a look to see what kind of battles there are going on the racetrack. And Kevin Binkley, continues his battle now for the race lead. It is down to just 0.3 of a second on the racetrack as these guys are really battling now. Ryan Crofton, so he does lead the way in this event. In fact, just having a look, Kevin Binkley just 0.4 of a second back. Then you've got John Ulmer in that third place, and as these guys get up amongst traffic, it becomes a lot more difficult for these guys to make up time on the racetrack. It is very close right now, Binkley to Crofton, as these guys continue to battle for the race lead. Just 0.4 of a second. You might see something very interesting as they come back onto the oval. Oh, we've got a car upside down on the racetrack, and you just saw that as we're looking at your overall leaders. We're going to get confirmation of who that is in just 1 month's time. It was the number 7 car of Manuel Munoz. Talked about him a little bit earlier on, but that car is upside down coming out of the infield section. Replay is up on your screen. Let's see if we can figure out exactly what happened to him. So he was coming onto the oval, and actually he makes contact with another car there. I'm just trying to figure out who that one was, but it was the 314 car who he made contact with. That put him up all the way into the grey, into the safety barrier on the outside of the corner, and that is why Manuel Munoz is classified for the moment as out of the race. Spearing that Spec Racer Ford upside down, very lucky actually, he didn't collect anyone else as he came back down the racetrack. Of course, 24 degrees of banking here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. What goes up must at some point come back down. So Binkley wasn't able to make the most of that situation as he's still on the rear of Ryan Crofton. They say almost 3 wide coming down into the oval section once again. Binkley's actually lost the position in that to John Ulmer as they all got bunched up together. That last lap alone, Ulmer's been able to gain about 1.5 seconds. It's now a 3-way battle for the GTR race lead between Ryan Crofton, who has led every single lap of this event, John Ulmer in second, and then in third is Kevin Binkley. As these guys are literally side by side. Binkley, big crash! Big crash on the racetrack just at the rear of our screen. We'll get a confirmation of who that was. It was Smith, we believe, as we've got a car stopped on the racetrack as well. And we've also got someone going very wide out of turn number 1. But it was Jeremy Smith who had a huge moment coming out of NASCAR turn 4. Replay is up on your screen. We'll try and figure out what happened to him. He was running in the GTR class, of course. Now, this would have been coming out of NASCAR turn number 4. Makes a little bit of contact whilst running side by side. Gets turned into the outside safety barrier. And then just spearing that car upside down. Then he ended up getting himself onto the grass. He will be classified momentarily as out of the race. See if we can get another look at that. So yeah, indeed, he did make contact there with another one of the GTR class as they worked themselves. That was the 314 car who he made contact with. So the 314 car has been in the wars these last couple of laps. Of course, we saw the incident with him coming onto the oval a couple of laps ago, which taken out one of the GTS drivers. And now this incident that we see here with Jeremy Smith, which puts Smith, for the time being, as out of the race. Back to the action then, and Binkley is your new race leader as Ryan Crofton has lost himself about 5 seconds. So we need to have a look to see exactly what's happened to Ryan Crofton, but he has now lost the overall race lead in that GTR class that he has led pretty much all race long. Let's see if we can figure out what happened to Ryan Crofton. He had an off-track moment by the look of it, so this would have been in the infield section, we believe, and just trying to figure out what happened to him. Of course, a lot of traffic on this infield section of the racetrack, and Ryan Crofton is now classified in 4th place on the racetrack, and it was spinning down at turn number 2, actually. Just figuring out what happened to him, but he lost it down in turn number 2, and that has allowed Kevin Binkley to go to the overall race lead, and he properly drifted that car down into turn number 2, actually. It was a rather entertaining moment for all involved except for him. Thankfully, there's a car stopped on the racetrack, and this is actually just as we went to replay of the previous incident. Coming out into turn number 2, Ryan Crofton just got himself onto the white line, drifted that car around in the number 10 car had to allow some slow traffic to go past him, and that is why he has now scored as about 7 seconds, 8 seconds off your overall race lead. Just getting confirmation, it's 9.7 seconds actually he's off the race lead now, and of course those tyres will take a couple of laps to just cool down, but that does allow Kevin Binkley to the overall race lead in the GTR class. In second place is John Ulmer. Ulmer, as it stands, is about 3.3 seconds behind Binkley, who has been able to pull away. Billy Smith runs in third. Ryan Crofton rounds out your top four. Just trying to figure out what's happened to one of you guys in these mix. We'll come back to that in a moment, as we do continue to have battles going on in the GTO class, as we just saw a little bit of smoke actually. Robert Grant has just had a moment, and in his car, just trying to think about whether that was a crash or just a self-spin. Oh, something's happened to Billy Smith as well. To give you an update, Robert Grant, it was a free-car crash actually for Robert Grant, and Billy Smith was involved in that mix with the 901 car. You see there on the replay, Billy Smith was involved in that incident as well. The oval is proving tricky for some of these guys. We talked about how there's going to be a lot of drafting and free-wide racing at some point. Now, for Smith, as they work themselves onto the oval, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? The 314 car is involved in some way here. The 314 car isn't at fault this time, making contact with Billy Smith. Then that actually just clipping the rear of that 901 GTR car. All three of those out of the race. That is something that we do not want to see. But Billy Smith, Andy Yang, Robert Grant, all looking as though they had some big issues right now, as Robert Grant in his GTO car bringing his car out of pit road, hopefully back out onto the racetrack, and Andy Yang in the GTO 02 car is also sat on pit road as it stands right now. 32 seconds so far he has been on pit road, getting 4 fresh tyres, and he will top up with fuel, hopefully to go to the end of this event. Binkley, that last time by in the GTR race lead, did himself a 1 minute 9.059. John Ulmer behind a 1 minute 9.413. So losing time right now is John Ulmer in that 902 Pennzoil car to your race leader of Kevin Binkley in that ISS number 75 car. Completed just over 15 minutes of this event. Ryan Crofton is now back up into third place. And that last time by though is a 1 minute 13 for Ryan Crofton, as he is falling further and further away from the rear of your race leader. 13.5 seconds now is your gap from Crofton, who led the start of this race, led the first 10 minutes, then had a spin down at turn number 2, and is now 15 seconds behind your over race lead. Very unlucky actually with the traffic that time around. Let's check in then on battles going on in your GTS class. You've got the Red Bull number 250 car of Vincent Bream trying to run down the milk car of Andy Morgan, as these guys battle for P4 in your GTS class, coming back down into turn number 1 once again. Vincent Bream in the Red Bull machine. It's a battle of the drinks companies as they work themselves now down into turn number 2. Bream's last lap time was a 1 minute 25.670. Andy Morgan did himself a 1 minute 25.512. These guys have been battling pretty hard the last couple of laps. They are also catching up very slowly to the rear of Dylan Francis, who runs in that No Fear car right now in third place in your GTS class. Your overall leader in GTS class, though, remains Brian Herring, who has got himself a 10-second gap right now over Martin Jensen in that battle for the GTS race lead. And that will be useful for Herring as they come into the second half of this event. Having a look at your GTO class and your GTO race leader, no surprise, it's Jeroen van Velde. Absolutely dominant he has been all race long once again, and van Velde has got himself about a 7-second gap right now over Gordon Wilson in this battle for the GTO race lead. And Van Velde, of course, is fabulously dominant last time out. We saw you here on RaceSpotTV. But once again, that number 18 Harley Davidson car is just being absolute dominant as he works himself through the infield section. A little bit of lap traffic that he's going to try and get past the Martini machine as he works himself out of the infield and back onto the banking. Actually a little bit slow coming onto the banking, taking a very acute angle onto the banking as he's trying to get himself past some lap traffic, but he continues to lead in the GTO class and continues to pull out his gap as well. Let's have a look at any other actions. We talked about Andy Corkill in GTO a little bit earlier on, slamming that outside retaining wall, and he has got some front end damage. We're just having a look at his lap times to see whether he has come back onto pace. He's about 1.5 seconds a lap slower than what he was able to do at the start of this event. A lot of that will come down to his overall speed on the oval. That number 67 car will be looking to potentially get a little bit of repairs made to that car as he runs very wide into turn number 5. He will be hoping, well, as soon as that pit window opens, he can come onto pit road, make some stops. And by the way, we have had stops occur in your GTR race lead. It was an 18.2 second stop there for John Ulmer. He's made his stop. Billy Smith, a 17.7 second stop. Greg Hogg did a 20.6 second stop. We'll keep an eye out, of course, on Binkley, see when he comes on pit road. Ryan Crofton, by the way, has spun it again, and I think he might have made contact that time. So let's figure out what happened to Ryan Crofton. This was turn number 2 again, but looks at get himself onto the grass. Does he hit anything? He does clip the Armco barrier. I don't see any damage to his car, but Ryan Crofton has once again hit the wall, and he was trying to catch up to the rear of Kevin Binkley. We have seen this before by Crofton. His last lap was a 109.175. His best has been a 107.3, and he definitely did actually clip that wall. This might hurt his straight line speed advantage, as you have got T-Mac right behind him right now. Gap is about 0.8 of a second on the racetrack in this battle, as T-Mac continues to run it along in 3rd place in the GTR class. Now just 0.8 of a second behind Ryan Crofton, and I think next time by we really will see what the speed differential gap is with Crofton, because he did take a big lick into that Armco barrier, and he's actually coming back down into that corner, which is giving him so much trouble. Turn number 2. It was once he drifted around the corner, once he went wide on the corner. This time, no issues, but he has, as I say, got T-Mac right behind him as he's just having to work himself past now some of that GTS traffic. And actually, T-Mac's lost about half a second in this sequence of corners because he is struggling to get past some of this lap traffic as we're riding on board with T-Mac coming back onto the oval. He's going to have to split some of these cars. He had to get onto the brakes, but now he can go to the outside, and he's about 0.5 of a second behind Ryan Crofton. Have a look at the speed of these guys. 150 miles an hour, 155 now for T-Mac as he shifts up into his highest gear. Ryan Crofton is going slower, 155 miles an hour for him, and T-Mac just is closing. I don't think he's going to be close enough to make that pass laid down into turn number 1. In fact, no, he won't. As also, you notice that T-Mac has to brake a little bit earlier down into that first corner in that Ford GT. Crofton running very wide out of turn number 1. Then he almost hits that inside retaining wall. More traffic. This is the corner that's caused so many issues for Crofton. And now T-Mac into the wall. Same place that Crofton did. T-Mac just hits the wall as they work themselves through turn number 2. Replay is up on your screen, and T-Mac losing it again, actually, just through a cut to replay. So T-Mac's day is done by the look of it. So unlike Crofton, he was able to get away with hitting that Armco barrier. T-Mac, he had one incident down at turn number 2, tried to do his carry on in this race car, but then he just looped that car around in the infield section and decided that his day was done. And this all started in this exactly the same place that Crofton had, just pushing wide into turn number 2. Then once you're onto that grass, it's so slippery out there, just clobbering the outside Armco barrier. And we'll stick with the replay. We'll show you what happened afterwards. Comes out of turn 2, thinks, okay, hopefully I might be able to carry on. Comes down into turn number 3, back into that car, just steps out, and that was T-Mac's day over. Whilst this is all going on, of course, we've got Kevin Binkley continuing to lead the way in that GTR number 75 car. Now, Binkley has led 10 laps of this event. Ryan Crofton has led 11 laps. as we are now into the second half of this event. But we do expect to see both Binkley and Crofton onto pit road within the next couple of laps. Crofton's last lap time, by the way, was a 1:13.172, so he continues to struggle. Binkley, a 1:09.058 as he comes past the start-finish line to work another lap here, and he's now equalled Ryan Crofton for the most laps led in this event. Dylan Francis, very slow on the racetrack. He's bringing his car onto pit road in that GTS number 26 car. So Dylan Francis is onto pit road for his one and only stop here today in that GTS number 26 Absolute Beginners Racing machine. He's going to get himself potentially fuel only. We are getting word. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be fuel only for that number 26 car, and we did hear before the race that there's probably going to be a lot of guys doing that in the GTS class. Fuel only for them, no tyres. There's another car on pit road as well. That is John Ulmer getting himself 4 fresh tyres. A little bit of rear wing damage as well. So I'm just keeping an eye out on Ulmer to see. It's been about a 57-second stop. And you'll notice just how difficult pit exit is here. If you've got two guys battling for a position coming out of pit road, it can be mighty difficult. So we've also got the double O car onto pit road as well, as that Jimmy Eifling's Jägermeister car is on pit road. He is going to be out and away. Pit stop time for him, 32 seconds on the racetrack, as we keep that Pennzoil 902 car onto pit road of John Ulmer, who started this race here today in P7, getting himself 4 tyres at stake. A very long stop for him, up to 1 minute 36 seconds. So Ulmer looking as though he is going to finish well down the field here today. Let's go back and have a look in your GTO class, because you've got Yang in their O2 machine right on the rear of Robert Grant right now. This is P5 in your GTO class. Andy Yang is literally 0.2 of a second back. Wasn't able to make a move as they came through NASCAR Turn 2. Now they work themselves into NASCAR Turn 3 and 4. Neither of these guys have pitted yet. Yang wasn't able to really keep that momentum out of NASCAR Turn 4. He slots back into line as they work themselves down in towards turn number 1 once again. Yang gets a much better run off the corner there. This is going to give him the inside line for the second part of turn number 1. Next corner is going to be a right-hander though. This would help the 22 car keep his momentum, and there you see the 22 machine being able to keep it ahead of the O2 car of Andy Yang. And this is a great battle between Grant. Grant goes wide there. That's going to allow Andy Yang to go past, but Robert Grant just running it wide on the exit of turn number 3. We have seen that this infield section has been very difficult for some of these drivers, particularly turns number 2 and 3, and Robert Grant losing a position whilst all that is going on. Carl Petson, by the way, looking as though he is out of the race. Indeed so, with a blown engine by the looks of it. So I'm just trying to figure out whether he's actually had some car trouble or with a blown engine. We'll try and figure that one out for you in just one moment's time. But for Carl Petson, he is classified well down the field now in this race, and he was running as high as P8 in that GTR car. But Petson Estate now is classified towards the rear of the field. Kevin Binkley, meanwhile, continues along his way as he works himself for another lap here. He's now led the most laps in this event, 14 laps overall. Of course, the only other person to lead more laps in their own class is the guy who continues to lead in GTO. And he has, of course, led every single lap. That is Sean Van Velde, who has led every single lap of his event once again. And of course he has been rather dominant before, as Binkley going very wide as he works himself through turn number 5 on the racetrack. That number 75 car, knowing that he's possibly got this race in the bag, because he needs to eke out now a 27-second gap over Ryan Crofton in this battle for the GTR race lead. So we've got a couple of other people on pit road right now. Van Velde actually is on pit road from your GTO race lead, and let's check in on the pit time for Van Velde. In fact, no, Van Velde has actually, by the look of it, had an incident So somewhere along the line, Van Belt has had a crash and is out of the race. We'll try and figure out exactly what happened to him. We'll go through and see if there's anything we can pick out. But Van Belt is going to be classified well down the field, and this is going to be highly disappointing for the guy who was absolutely dominant in that GTO car in the early stages of this race. Incredible stuff there for Van Belt. So keeping an eye out on him, 4 fresh tyres, you say. He's revving that engine, hoping to bring it back out onto the racetrack. Just trying to figure out where he is. He's dropped down to 4th in the GTO class. Of course, we have got to keep our eye out for your overall race leader, Kevin Binkley, because he is due on pit road. We've completed half an hour of this race now. Fuel is limited in this event, so these guys are expected to make at least 1 pit stop. We have seen a couple of guys already do so in the GTR class. Billy Smith, for example, has made a pit stop in this event, as has Greg Hogg. And also Stan Coppola has, I believe, made a pit stop. No, he hasn't actually in that GTR car. So the 427 car hasn't yet made a pit stop. Your top 2 haven't made a pit stop either. David Henry is coming onto pit road right now from what is now your GTO race lead, that number 80 Pennzoil car, down to 45 miles an hour. It's a very slow pit road speed here. A couple of other people on pit road as well, as these guys continue to make green flag pit stops here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. To give you an update, by the way, a couple of people classified as out of the race: Jeremy R. Smith, Adam Bradshaw, Mansour Mio, Ben Helson, Nicholas Lecrae and Daria Buzzi, all classified as out of this event, as David Henry is going to get himself 4 tyres, top up with fuel as well. That gives that GTO race lead for the time being to Gordon Wilson in that number 42 car, and he is leading that way right now. And just having a look back, Harry Van Belt is about 15 seconds back as it stands, and of course pit stop hasn't yet been made by Gordon Wilson. Van Belt having to dive down to the inside of a slower car down into turn number 4. Very close call between those two, almost making contact. Well, we do expect potentially Wilson to come onto pit road this time by, as keeping an eye out on your battle in GTR. These guys haven't yet made a pit stop. Ryan Crofton is working himself out of NASCAR turn 2 down the NASCAR back straightaway, and that number 10 car could be coming onto pit road very soon, as well as David Henry just coming back onto the racetrack. And this is exactly what we talked about at the top of this broadcast, how difficult pit exit can be, and Henry losing himself about 3 to 4 seconds as he had to allow cars. We've got a crash down in turn number 1, by the way, crash down at turn number 1, and it's Andy Corkill in the number 67 car. We'll get a replay up and let's figure out what happened to him. So let's figure out what's happened, and this is what we were talking about coming out, and I believe that was Ben Beld actually who might have been involved in that. We'll get confirmation in just one moment's time, but yeah, Andy Corkill having a moment down as he came back onto the racetrack, and this is what we're talking about, how difficult pit exit is here, because you cannot see what is going on if you're on the racetrack. All you can tell is that there's a car coming back onto the racetrack. You really can't tell exactly what your car placement is until you get there. And then Andy Corkill coming back onto the racetrack, just making contact with another car there. And I believe that was actually a Spec Racer Ford, so it wasn't Van Beld as I previously predicted. But for Andy Corkill, he has been in the walls here today. We've got something else going on, and Andy Corkill has had another moment on the racetrack. So the thing isn't going well with his own teammate in that number 67 car. So Andy Corkill's day goes from absolutely bad to even worse, and of course he had damage after his pit road incident, and of course an incident a little bit further on earlier in this race. But now Andy Corkill is definitely struggling, as now he is going to be classified as out of this event. Not a good day then for Andy Corkill. Meanwhile, T-Mac is still sat on pit road trying to get some repairs to his race car. A couple of people are on pit road. Andy Corkill is one of them right now. Just bringing his car onto pit road, trying to see if he can get some repairs made to his machine. Kevin Binkley continues to lead though in the GTR class. And then you've got Ryan Crofton still in second. Crofton is now about 34 seconds back with 10 minutes to go on the play clock. And yeah, indeed, Ryan Crofton is losing a lot of time now, over 30 seconds back gap to the race lead. Crofton did lead the first 11 laps of this event, but then he had a spin down in turn number 2, then he hit the wall out of turn number 2. Just having a look at his lap times as well. His last lap was a 1 minute 10.4, comes past start finish line. Lap time by a 1 minute 9 for him as he works himself down into turn number 1, having to take a double stab at that turn, as it was some slower GTO traffic here to avoid running into the rear two. And of course, multi-class racing, especially on a track like this, can make things difficult, as Dennis and Menace coming down on towards pit road. So for most of these guys, they have now made their stops. Gordon Wilson still continues to lead in the GTO class. He has got himself about a 15-second gap, now down into 10 minutes of this race to go. And of course, some of these guys might be considering a little bit of fuel saving. And for Gordon Wilson, just having a look at his lap times, his last time was a 1 minute 13.423, about 1.5 seconds slower than his fastest lap of this event. And now Wilson working himself back down the rear straightaway. Just keep an eye out, of course, as Kevin Binkley's on pit road. But no, Kevin Binkley's not on pit road. We'll take that one back completely. But Kevin Binkley continues to lead in the GTR class, as we said. And GTO class leader is Gordon Wilson. As he continues to lead, he will stay out for another lap, just getting past some slower GTS traffic. And then in GTS, Brian Herring does continue to lead right now. And he has got himself about a 17.7 second gap over Martin Jensen in this GTS race lead battle. And having to say that, again, Herring is having an absolutely faultless race. So just having a look down the field, we've got Peterson come on to pit road, but it looks as though that he might be retiring from this race. No, he's not. He's coming back out onto the racetrack. Indeed so, pit stop there for Peterson, 23.5 seconds on this guns, and he will come back out onto the racetrack. Battles have kind of calmed down now in GTS. Liam Quinn, Andy Morgan, they are trading lap times as they are battling over P5 right now. But interesting to note, Liam Quinn is slowly catching up to the rear of P4. Last lap time for him was his fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 24.263. So Liam Quinn trying to close down Arthur Chan. The gap between those drivers, well, it's about 1.2 seconds actually. And this is going to be interesting for Chan, because he's going to have two very fast cars coming on the outside of him. Down into turn number 1 they come, and Arthur Chan, now that gap is less than 1 second on the racetrack. He did a 124.8 that last time by. Liam Quinn was able to do himself a 1 minute 24.292. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch in the last moments of this race, as we've got a 4GT just working outside of Arthur Chan. Still very packed up here. And for these slower car classes, they have got to really do some heads-up driving, figure out what car class it is behind them, figure out exactly where they are going to be on the racetrack when they come down into the next corner. And one of the things that you can use to differentiate that is the headlights on these cars, which are different shades. So from bright white for the GTS class to a kind of more yellowy colour for the GTO class. There's no headlights at all on the GTS class, however, with the exception of course, their rear brakes, which indicates when they're braking into a corner. But Chan now has got just a 0.5 second of a gap over Liam Quinn as they work themselves down the back once again. Both of these drivers have made a pit stop. Arthur Chan was very quick, fuel only for him, 11.4 seconds. Liam Quinn did a 30.2 second stop, so it was fresh tyres for him. He's reaping the benefits of that, as now just 6 minutes to go in this event. Just keeping an eye out. Binkley, by the way, has now made a pit stop, fuel only for him. Billy Smith has made a pit stop earlier on in this race. Ryan Crofton has fallen back down into 3rd place after making his pit stop. It's a 26.2 second stop for him, so he did take tyres, and of course he had to get a little bit of damage repair to that car as well. But what this has done is allowed Billy Smith to move back up into your GTR 2nd place, and Billy Smith now, just having a look at the gap to the leader, about 13.4 seconds with 5 minutes to go. So I don't think that Smith is going to be close enough to catch up to the rear of Binkley, who's now led 22, makes that 23 laps in this event. Binkley back down into turn number 1, and these guys, just having a look at the lap times, what they are doing in GT, and 109.9 last time by for Kevin Binkley. And just having a look, and I think that means that they are going to get about 5 more laps in. It will be very close once again as to whether or not they're going to make that 4, 5 or 6, but we'll get confirmation as we get closer towards the end of this event. You can see the play clock, 5 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. Of course, once that expires, the lap player on will be the last lap of the race. Quinn and Chan, they continue, and this is now a 3-car battle. Dylan Francis running himself in the 3rd place in GTS. Then you've got Arthur Chan in 4th in GTS. Then in 5th place, you've got Andy Morgan. These guys are incredibly close together. Scratch that, sorry. It was Dylan Francis, Arthur Chan, Liam Quinn. These guys are battling, and Liam Quinn's actually lost out a little bit in the first couple of corners of this lap. He is now 1.2 seconds back from this gap. He has got to be careful as well, because Chan and Francis can make this a 2-horse race for this final podium spot. If they can work together on the oval, they can put away from Quinn, and then potentially it'll be a battle with those 2 drivers. As I believe that might have been Ryan Crofton hitting the outside wall. Indeed, I think he did, just as he came onto the oval. Replay coming up on your screen. Let's see whoever can figure this one out for Ryan Crofton. So I definitely did hear something. So he works himself back onto the racetrack. This is NASCAR turn 1. So you having to go high. And yes, he did. He hit the wall there. So Ryan Crofton's day, he has hit his car on the left-hand side. Wanted to possibly make it a little bit even, then deciding he was going to hit the car on the right-hand side. Now that really will hurt his straight line speed advantage, and he has lost a position now to Hedgehog in the process. So that was a hard lick for him. Now down into P4 in the GT R class is Ryan Crofton, and that was some rather substantial damage he has had, and he is actually now on pit road. Battle will continue though. Dylan Francis, Arthur Chan, Liam Quinn. Quinn catching up to the rear, has caught up to the rear of Arthur Chan once again, as the battle of these 3 cars will go down to the wire. I do not see anyone being able to pull away. This is the best battle we have in the remaining laps of this race. As confirmation, Crofton is out of the race. He is down in P5. Cars going past him. Andrew Daniels actually just now being able to get ahead of him. Would look as though that we will lose P6 in just a moment so time or so, as Dan Cunniper will take over that 5th position in just a couple of moments time. Arthur Chan looking to the outside as they will ride on board of Arthur Chan coming down NASCAR turn 3 and 4. Is he going to try and make that move? As he'll look to the high side coming out of NASCAR turn 4. You can try and brake a little bit later and sweep around the outside, but there's faster traffic going to go 3 wide down into turn 1. We've got a spin down as well. Thankfully the spinning car getting out of the way, but they are too wide, too deep as they work themselves out of turn number 1. And Chan getting a little bit wide here, but he'll have the inside line from the next corner, not quite close enough. And it's Kevin Binkley actually who is stuck behind this traffic, and he has lost himself about 4 seconds on this lap alone. Now there's a short straightaway, now he's able to get past. But for Kevin Binkley, as these guys were battling for position, there's just nowhere he could go. You could see he was sat in line, having to wait, and it has cost him about 4 seconds, has allowed Billy Smith to close back in. But it does look as though that Binkley will continue to lead this race with a substantive margin, so no real issue for him. Arthur Chan is still on the rear of Dylan Francis. Liam Quinn has dropped back once again, but Arthur Chan, will he look to the high side? Yes, he will. So there's going to be a drag race, 2 wide. They're going to be 3 wide, so they come down into NASCAR turn 3, because there you see a little bit of faster traffic just sweeping past them on the high side. Now Chan is actually ahead on this outside line, but now he's going to lose that position as the inside line just a little bit faster there for Dylan Francis. Now, will Chan be able to sweep around the outside as he tried to do last time as they come down in towards turn number 1? The answer to that question is going to be... no, he won't. Arthur Chan, though, does get a good run out the corner, but Liam Quinn is right there in line as these three guys continue to battle on the racetrack. Play clock is down to 30 seconds. So then for Kevin Binkley, he will work himself onto the oval for the final time. Does look as though this is going to be the white flag lap. Play clock down to 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10 seconds left. Then you will see the checkered flag coming out above the flag stand, and it will be Kevin Binkley who works himself down into NASCAR turn 3 for the final time. And he has led 28 laps it will be once they come past the start finish line in your GTR class. Kevin Binkley will take your overall race victory by about 7 seconds when all is said and done. Billy Smith comes home second in your GTR class, and just making a little bit of contact actually as they come past the start finish line. Johan van Belde just working himself onto the back straightaway for the final time. Gordon Wilson did make a pit stop in the end, and he falls down into second place overall, but for Van Belde onto the oval for the final time through NASCAR turn 3, through NASCAR turn 4. Johan van Belde will take victory in your GTO class. Brian Herring is just finishing off as well in your GTS class onto the back straightaway for him. Of course, for Liam Quinn, Arthur Chan, we know that battle is already done because of the fact that they were scored laps down as the time expired. But in that battle, it was Dylan Francis who was able to lead from Liam Quinn. Arthur Chan lost out in the last moments of this race, but Brian Herring coming down to take victory in your GTS class. So the last couple of drivers now just coming past the start finish line. Ladies and gentlemen, we will step aside for just one moment and we'll be back with race results and also post-race interviews. Stick with us here on RaceSpotTV. Well done, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here on RaceSpotTV, and it is time to run through your final race results here from Absolute Beginners from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Before we do that, we would like to remind you that this race is brought to you by the Autobahn Motorcar Group in Fort Worth, Texas. To run through your final race results then, Kevin Binkley taking victory over Billy Smith in your GTR class. Redwald coming home in the 3rd position. Then Andrew Daniels, Dan Culliper gets up into the top 5. Then Jimmy Eifling in the 6th position. Ryan Crofton falls down into 7th after he made contact with the outside wall. And then you have got John Ulmer, T-Mac and Carl Petson rounding out your top 10. Having a look through the rest of your GTR, there you see P11, 12 and 13, Smith, Helton and Licari rounding out your GTR field. Then over to GTO, it is Johan van Belde taking victory from Gordon Wilson, Andy Yang and David Henry round out your top 4. Then it's Robert Grant, Andy Corcoran and Dario Buzzi rounding out your GTO field. Then in GTS, Brian Herring taking victory from Martin Jensen. Then a great battle at the line between Arthur Chan, Denham Francis and Liam Quinn. Andy Morgan, Brett Trosin, L. Peterson, Cerner and Bream round out your top 10 as there you see the rest of your GTS field up on your screen. Time to talk to a couple of drivers, and we will start with the person who took overall race victory in the GTR class. Kevin Binkley, what a race you've had here today.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate it.
Good race. Of course, you didn't start this race on pole position. You started it on the outside of that front row, but you were able to take that lead after what was a rather interesting spin there from Ryan Crofton, his first of his incidents here today. Of course, Japanese drift driving it almost through turn number 2. Kind of lucky for you to avoid it in some ways.
Yeah, it looked actually like he was going to save it there for a little bit, so I gave him room, didn't know how it was going to turn out, and then I went low and I saw he was still coming toward me, so I had to cut the course a little bit, take the slow down, but it ended up working pretty good.
And then from there, it was a case, you've led a total of 28 laps in this event today, so you led the most laps in the GTR class. It did look as though that potentially you were going to try and go as long as you possibly could on pit stops. You, in fact, took fuel only, I believe, at the end.
Yes, that's correct. I took a full tank of fuel because with the Cadillac around the slippery course, I wanted a full tank of fuel for the stability reasons, and just ran it till it was dry. It took just enough that I needed to go ahead and get back out. The tires, I knew would last another 4 or 5 minutes, so it wasn't a big deal to me. And
had it have actually been a little bit closer up front and there had been a battle at the end, of course, there are 2 different strategies that went on. Some of the other guys taking fuel and tyres earlier on in this race, and then they would have had potentially fresher tyres at the end. Do you think that would have played into a factor at all, or was that strategy going to be the one that you would have stuck with regardless?
Oh, absolutely. I would have taken tires. If it was a closer race, I would have needed the actual pace. So I would have taken tires because, one lap out and then the second, third, fourth lap are just amazingly good in that car.
But you did take victory. You say led a total of 28 laps here today. Before we let you go, anyone you'd like to say thank you to?
I just want to thank you guys for broadcasting, all the racers in the field. Everybody did a great job on such a tight course, letting people by. So I just appreciate it from everybody.
Before we let you go, actually, one more question, actually, about that traffic, because it was crazy here today. Just how tough was it, especially on that infield? We did see you right behind that freeway battle in the GTS field at the end. I think you lost about 4 or 5 seconds there. Just how difficult was it to navigate through traffic, especially late on in the race as some of these battles were concluding?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. And like you were saying, in the latter part of the race, you're dealing with tires that are just wore out. You need to really be mindful of different braking zones and just where everybody is on track, because with the speed difference and as tight as it gets in the infield, things can go very wrong very fast. So you just have to really give space as much as it hurts when you're looking at your relative and people are telling you they're coming up, you're losing time. You have to settle down and not end anybody's race.
Kevin Binkley taking home victory in the GTR class. Thanks very much, Kevin. And, of course, we'll talk from one winner to another. Winner of the GTO class, Hoen van Velde, taking victory in that class. And once again, pretty good, strong race by you. And making that pit stop about midway through. But overall, interesting, good race. Take us through it, Johan.
Yeah, thanks, of course, for the congratulations. I think it was a good race. I think on pace, I was quicker than most of the guys. It was still pretty close with Gordon Wilson. Our lap times didn't differ that much, to be honest. Just before I entered the pits, I hit the wall in turn 1, so I was kind of forced to enter the pits. And after the pit stop, Gordon was 20 seconds in front of me, so I didn't know what happened. I thought my car took a lot of damage and took a lot of time repairing the car, but in the end, my pace was good enough because Gordon had to make a second pit stop, and it worked all out in the end.
So you're able to get yourself the victory overall, but being in that GTO class, it's always difficult in multi-class racing. Of course, you've got the faster guys coming up behind you, then you've got to navigate through slower traffic as well. That infield today looked very difficult to try and find your way through lap traffic. How hard was it for you, especially in the early stage of that race when a lot of that GTS traffic was still very clumped together and you had the GT car traffic coming up right behind you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. To be honest, the caddies and the Ford GTs aren't so much a problem for me in the Kia, because the speed in the infield part of the track on the Kia is actually pretty well. It's of course a little bit slower than those cars, but it's still not that bad. So the only place I really had to look out, or that they actually tried to pass me, was on the oval. So they didn't bother me that much in the infield parts, but like you say, the Mazdas and the Spec Racer Fords, they were just they were like little moving six. But they did an amazing job. They went out of the way when you tried to overtake them in the corner, and yeah, it was really difficult. But yeah, everybody did an amazing job, and to be honest, the traffic didn't bother me that much in this race.
And you've got to be impressed as well, increasing even further that dominant lead that you have in that GTO championship as it stands.
Yeah, that's obviously great to take away from this race.
Before we let you go, anyone you'd like to say thank you to?
Yeah, like I said, I want to thank you to all the guys in the race. Everybody did an amazing job and just behaved really professionally from my point of view. Really sportsmanlike, and for me it was an amazing race.
Hohen van der Velde taking victory in the GTO class. Very quickly got the time to talk to David Henry. He came home 4th in that GTO class. Take us through your race, David.
It was an exciting race. I was really excited to get through the whole thing. I was trying to pace myself and play it safe the whole way, and just hope that the guys in front of me would make some mistakes and I'd be able to catch up with them. I just couldn't match the pace that the other drivers were putting up. So, kind of the safety strategy it worked out pretty well. It got me to 4th. It didn't get me all the way to the front. Passing was brutal. I was the only driver, I think, in the entire field that made it through incident-free. Maybe I just played it a little too safe.
Started 7th, running 4th at the line in that number 80 car. Now, overall pace wasn't too bad, and as we were saying to Ryan just a moment ago, in that GTO class, but in that middle class, it's always incredibly difficult having to go past slower cars, but also being lapped at the same time. Now, what does that do momentum-wise for you, especially as you're trying to make up places in this race, just keep your car clean as you're talking about? Just how hard is it, momentum-wise, being in that middle car class on a tight infield section like we have here at CMS?
Well, it definitely keeps every lap interesting. It throws off your rhythm, it throws off your concentration, it throws off your pace, but the same thing's happening to everybody else, so it's kind of luck of the draw.
4th place overall in this event, making it through without any incident, so that's a positive from your part. But before we let you go, anyone you'd like to say thank you to, and looking forward to the next race, I'm presuming?
Absolutely. I'd like to thank Autobahn Motorsports for having me on the team, RaceSpots for broadcasting. You guys do an amazing job, and all the other racers for participating. It's an amazing league. It's a great learning experience to race in absolute beginners, and I'm really glad to be here.
Coming home 4th, David Henry in the GTO class. We'll put the results up on your screen one more time, run through the top 5 in each class. And Kevin Binkley taking victory overall in that GTR class from Billy Smith, then Greg Hogg in 3rd, Andrew Daniels and Stan Culpepper rounding out your top 5. And then in GTO, it is Hohen van der Velde, then Gordon Wilson, Andy Yang, and David Henry and Robert Grant. They were your top 5. And then in GTS, Brian Herring taking overall victory in that class, and then behind him you had Martin Jensen, Arthur Chan, Dylan Francis and Liam Quinn. Arthur Chan coming out of what was an amazing battle to the line in that GTS class. And ladies and gentlemen, that is all we have time for here today in Absolute Beginners. We'd like to remind you, of course, here on RaceSpotTV, we are your home for the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. You can find the next race of that, a return to Interlagos, where Hugo Luis taking his only victory in the season. Round number 2, a couple of drivers looking for some retribution. Of course, Ollie Picala winning last time out at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, looking to carry that momentum forward in his charge to move up the championship standings. Martin Conke still looking for a victory. Could that come at Interlagos? Find out as the next round of the championship coming your way on August 30th here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. We've also got coverage of the Club UK&I Skip Barber Championship tomorrow night here on RaceSpotTV. Coverage will start at 7:45 p.m. And then we've also got Friday night IndyCar racing as drivers head for another week at Sonoma Motor Speedway, Infineon Raceway, Sonoma, whatever it is called these days. Think outside the oval. That'll be Friday night. Coverage will start at 8 p.m. GMT right here on RaceSpotTV. This race today was brought to you by the Autobahn Motorcar Group in Fort Worth. And this has been a RaceSpotTV presentation of Absolute Beginners Racing from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Myself, Will Vincent, and Hugo Louise, we will talk to you all next time. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.